All right, well, let's get to the news then.
Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. North and South America, and all the ships and clippers at sea. Let's go to press close.
All right, Ben, this week's game news has a theme. Do you know what this theme is?
The theme is
it's such an unfair question.
Games.
All right, here's my bad theme for this week. This week's game news are all about changes for our hobby during COVID.
I guess I could have read that on the breakdown for the episode. It's actually right in front of my face.
Well, but is that cheating? I don't know. Is that cheating? Yes, we do have show notes. Okay, so for me, the big news this week was Gen Con 2021 dates have been announced. Normally, Gen Con takes place at either like the last week in July or the first week in August, but they have announced that it will this year. They're going to try to do it. It's going to be September 16th through 19th. It's not going to be the same old Gen Con. I think they're talking about having limited. They're going to have an attendance cap. They're going to have what they say is a robust schedule of live streaming and online gaming through Gen Con Online. And then they're also going to try to do local events at game stores through pop-up Gen Con. So like that's the good news. They're going to try to do it. The bad news is that September 16th through 19th conflicts with Yom Kippur. And they didn't at all. they didn't consider my people. They didn't realize or they didn't give it enough weight, but obviously a lot of people are unhappy about that. And so they've apologized, but they've kind of like apologized for how they rolled out the announcement.
Yeah.
They're not changing the date. This is when it's going to be. So we were talking before, like you've never gone to Gen Con.
What'd you say?
You've never been.
I've never been. I've never.
Like to go.
I actually have very minimal interest in going to Gen Con.
Okay. I
really, yeah. No, I'm actually not very interested in going to cons. I actually used to never even have any interest in going to Strategicon. It was Jesse who was like, "You got to come to Strategicon. It'll be fun. You'll get to meet the guys, the podcast." I was like, "Okay, cool." And then I've gone since, because now it is fun. It's fun to do, but in my mind, I'm always like, this is cool, but like, I would just rather play games with my friends, right?
Which is
not to shade strangers, but like, it's like if I have to choose between playing friends with strangers and playing games with strangers or playing games with friends, I want to play with my friends more. It's cool to meet people. And I have actually had a lot of fun at Strategicon, but Strategicon is also local. And I don't know if I really feel like, investing in flying across the country and doing all that. But my mind could be changed. It's just, it's not there quite yet. Especially,
fair enough. I mean, I've been going for over 10 years. So when I go to Gen Con now, I am seeing friends. I'm seeing friends from all around the country, people that I've like done LARPs with for years and years and years. And so, easily more than half the con is just seeing my extended group of friends. And some of these people you get to game with online or whatever, but like, there's nothing like playing a game. In this case, it might be a LARP or playing, and then going out and getting dinner and getting drinks and hanging out till way too late.
Yeah.
And that's part of the appeal. It's not just wandering around a convention floor looking at booths of people trying to sell you games. I mean, Gen Con's so big, everybody has a different experience. And I think like some people might go to Gen Con and it would be completely different from what somebody who's gone 10 years and who's a LARPer versus a war gamer versus a Magic the Gathering player. Like, it's huge.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine it's probably super fun to just immerse yourself in pure board game mania for 3 days. And on that level, I think that is something I would like. I think I would love that. Just playing games
there 1 year.
Well, listen, if they have a Game Brain panel, okay. Listen, I can never resist pontificating in front of a crowd. So, who knows if they decide to do that.
So one final bit of news on Gen Con, or at least my understanding of. So for last year's Gen Con, if you bought a badge, because I'd bought a badge before they canceled in 2020. So badges have rolled over to 2021. It's also the case that now if you do not want to go in 2021, they will give you a refund on your badge.
Okay.
If you're not going to go this year, that's my understanding. Hopefully that's true, but I think, I will definitely be there in 2022. Whether 2021 is the right time to go back, it's just kind of like it's still too soon to say.
Yeah,
Like that's
I
just
agree. It's a little early for me, just a little bit. I mean, vaccinations are rolling out, which is really good, but
it's just hard. I can't make that call yet. I'm
can't make
optimistic,
it.
but can't make the call, especially if I'm not going to be planning events. Because normally, like Tom and I, we do LARPs through a group called Iocane Productions. That's our LARP group, and like this requires a lot of planning. Like we have to write a LARP, we have to cast a LARP. People are going to make costumes, and like this year just feels more like, well, like if it's going to work, we'll show up. But like planning makes it almost impossible. Like we have to make a decision very soon about whether we're going to do it or not. All right. In other news, consolidation. Asmodee has acquired Plan B Games. So Plan B is most notably known for like Azul, and I guess like Great Western Trail is Plan B. I don't know if they were always Plan B, but like also like Century Spice Road Trilogy, Camel Up. So again, falling into the changes to the hobby during COVID, we're continuing to see a certain amount of consolidation as Asmodee buys more stuff. Other news also, Z-Man Games, which is now part of FFG, wasn't always, but more consolidation. They had a post, more consolidation. So they did a post in which they announced that they are canceling their Princes of Florence re-release. Have you ever played Princes of Florence, Ben?
No, but there's a board game shop in New York City right by the Empire State Building, and I'm blanking on its name. But
the Complete Strategist, is that
Complete Strategist? That's exactly it. And anytime I would be in New York City, I would always drop by to see if there was any cool things to get. And I always noticed that they had a copy of the Princes of Florence. And I was like, should I get it? I don't know anything about it. I just know it's a game that's supposed to be cool. And I never got it. And then I read this article, and now I'm like, I should have gotten it, just purely based on scarcity. I'm like, I should have gotten it. But that article was, it was kind of sad about reading about how Z-Man is sunsetting their Euro Classics line, which is mainly just Reiner Knizia games. That's a bummer. I always hate hearing about games going out of print. It just and they had a very snarky paragraph in there where he said, let me read this. Let me find it.
I've got it here if you want me to read it. So this
read it then.
Well, there'll be a link in the show notes here if people want to check it out. So this was Z-Man's head of studio talking about both canceling this game that seemed like ready to go, the re-release. This, by the way, this is the first game, like when Tom was pulling me into the board gaming hobby, like over 15 years ago. I think Princes of Florence may have been like the first thing that we played. So this is one of those old classic games, and I think part of the thing going on the industry a lot of times is like certain games get forgotten, or like they were released long ago and they need a re-release. And I think that was the idea behind this, Z-Man doing this. But they've, I don't know how much of this is COVID and how much of this is just changes to the hobby. But so the Z-Man's head of studio said, if you do attempt to re-release a game via traditional distribution channels, then you need to pray that any number of witty UK board game influencers take notice and give you coverage. These folks hold massive sway over the current industry's focus. And without a ringing endorsement, poshly articulated in the Queen's English, best Euro ever, anyone? Your revised labor of love is headed for a miniature market fire sale.
Yeah, I was reading between the lines on that one big time. I don't know if I was misinterpreting what he was trying to say there, but I did not actually get the sense that he was making a statement full of love by saying that. I got the sense that he probably felt a little fed up that there's certain like very, very popular taste making, content creators out there that, if they like something, they can cause it to sell out immediately. And it sounds like this guy was maybe a little burned by that experience or didn't feel like some of their reviews were on point. But I was just like, okay, all right, this is interesting.
I see. I aspire to be a witty board game influencer.
Oh my God, me too. I would love to. I want to be like I was gonna say I want to be like buy Hans of Teutonica and make it sell out, but I tried doing that and I didn't make it sell out. And then Shut Up and Sit Down did it, and then they made it sell out, and I was like, great. I'm not witty. I'm not British.
Well, I think like part of what we're doing, hopefully in this podcast, is championing games, and I think like they're clearly talking about like Shut Up and Sit Down, and they're also talking about among others. And like I think like we're doing this on our podcast though, is like we're not just doing new board games. Like maybe like I think we're trying to address this. Like I do want to champion Taj Mahal and Ra and Through the Desert and Samurai. Like these are all games that were going to be part of this Euro Classics line. So like yeah, this is sad news. I think this is kind of like a tacky way of complaining about changes in the industry, but like there are great games that have kind of gotten slid aside. Like I agonize every single time I see Agricola slip further down the BGG rankings of what used to be the number one game. And I don't understand. I do understand some of this frustration of like the new hotness. Like there's clearly ratings inflation for one thing. You know, like it's not just that like there's a lot of great new games. It's also that like the numbers go up. But we want to champion these old games. This is a shame that Euro Classics is being sunsetted. That said, I don't think this is the end of the world on these games because they're going to revert back to the designers' control now. So I think there is a good chance that we'll see them in another form. It just won't be from Z-Man.
And my experience has been that whenever there's been a game that's been out of print and long out of print, and you're like, will this game ever come back? It literally always comes back. Like Ginkopolis is back. That was one that was out for a long time. Troy came back. A lot of these games come back. And actually, to a credit to Shut Up and Sit Down, and no pun intended, is that they actually are really good about highlighting older games. I mean, Shut Up and Sit Down just did Hans of Teutonica, and it was great. I've been waiting for them to notice Hans of Teutonica for a long time, and they did. And the reason why they make it sell out is because they have really smart and well thought out opinions, and they explain exactly what they like about a game, and then people can use that to decide if they're going to buy it or not. And so, if this article was having a little bit of an issue with those creators, I understand probably the frustration with being like, what about this game? Why don't you look at this game? I understand that frustration, but it's not really the content creator's fault. If they love a game, they love a game.
Well, there was a snarky comment about like if these games do get brought back, because we do see re-releases of games and they often are on crowdfunding sites like Kickstarter. But there was a snarky comment about like if these games do come back, I'm sure they'll come back on Kickstarter with a number of stretch goals and a lot of like little extra add-ons and flashy bits, that can come with it. And it's like, yeah, that probably is the right way to re-release a game now. Like the market has changed. The way that games get to the consumers has changed. Traditional board game, publishers, like things have changed.
I think it just sounded like someone who was probably very frustrated that this sounded like it was probably a passion project, and it probably got shut down for reasons that were very frustrating to him, and he probably was in his feelings, and understandably so. I would be in my feelings too. I'd be all sorts of snarky in my like blog about it. So like, I get it, but it must really suck. By the way, it must be just like the worst. You have this game that is great, and you're like, everyone used to think this game is great, and it still is great. The game hasn't changed, but now it's not cool enough for you. Like that is very frustrating, I imagine, for someone who's trying to champion it through the production process and is being told.
Well, maybe
no.
Ironically, like Princess of Florence will now get a lot of notice. It just won't be for Z-Man. Like we'll go play it. We have a copy of the game. I know Tom has a copy of the game, so maybe that'll be one of the games we get on the table when we actually get back to playing in person.
Yep.
Okay, final bit of game news, and this is not hobby related. I just new Kickstarter project called Mage Noir. And this caught my interest a little bit because I do like these kind of deck builder card games, and this features mage to mage combat, which sounds a little bit like Magic the Gathering. I think the difference here, if I understand correctly, is like it's just strictly mage to mage combat. There's no creatures. It operates off of a shared mana pool. So this all sounds like, I don't know if this is going to be good, but it's something I'm going to keep an eye on. I also like that I think the designers are French, and I want to be a very cool Magic Noir player. Would you like to play Magic Noir with me, Ben? Would you like to duel?
I can't say that I'm overwhelmingly intrigued by it. I'm not going to lie.
There's stock involved for these.
Yeah,
for these mages?
I like to think of myself as someone who is open to all games and will try all games. But after several years of being in the board game hobby, I've realized that I should stop lying to myself because I set myself up for disappointment, which I probably will address again later in the topic. We really teased the topic big time today. But I have a very strange reaction to games like that because I have some friends who just are all about those kind of games. And then if I come along with a game that has to do with trains or something like that, they just shame me to death. Like, oh, here's Ben with another train game. I'm like, well, I'm playing with all your elves and your mages, and I don't care about elves and mages, but my train is the bad guy here. And then so now I actually have like built up resentment to that genre because I felt like it was unfair that like my genre was receiving snobbery when I was open to that genre. So I've done like the most human thing possible, which is now blame an entire genre which does not deserve to be blamed because I have my own personal issues that I'm working through. So yeah, that's fun.
No, I think it's important because we're kind of talking about like we have these different communities with under the gaming umbrella. And like we do have these weird, not rivalries, but there's little hurts and harms and resentment. And like I'm sure like the Strategicon 18X players don't even know I exist. And like my feelings about them, are so
projected all your childhood
you feel
onto
shamed
it,
by
right?
Magic the Gathering players. That sounds so ridiculous that
It's
a
about
Magic
something
the
much
Gathering
deeper.
player could condescend to you.
And they're all my friends, by the way. They're my friends, and I love them and I adore them. And I play these games and I've had fun with these games. But I just got a little sore because I felt like I am so open to your theme, which I'm not really into inherently, but I felt like it wasn't being reciprocated towards me. Of course, I never actually voiced this. I just internalized it and then projected it onto the genre.
For me, if you identify like the game that most appeals to me that I'm going to gravitate towards, I think I described Mage Noir as a deck builder. That's not actually right. I think it's a deck construction. It's a constructed deck game, and like you can play with a pre-built deck. But like the games where I can put together a deck away from the game before I play it, that appeals to me. Like I love putting together that kind of stuff. I like
that's fun.
I played Game of Thrones for years, and I probably like designed so many decks that I just never even played with. But like the act of constructing a deck was deeply pleasurable, and I could do it when not actually playing. So I'm always like looking for the next game that'll do that will waste a tremendous amount of my time. Rather than actually playing it. Like a lot of times I don't actually even like end up playing these games that much. The construction's the fun part. So
that sounds really fun. That actually honestly sounds like it'd be super fun. I think I would like that too. I've always enjoyed games that involved customization and creating my own experiences, like even in video games, like Excite Bike. I would just love Excite Bike because I could make my own tracks,
There is a crossover here also with like games that appeal to me that are like video games or MMOs, like where you have a character and you're going to essentially like construct the character in terms of like how you spec it out. You start looking at different, like when I played World of Warcraft, it's like, specking your hunter a certain way because this is like tailoring it to your play style. And it wasn't just like what's good. It's also you're tailoring it to like what you enjoy in the game, the kind of play that you want to have. I like it when there's that kind of crossover between different games.
Yeah. That sounds super fun.
Hey, if you enjoyed that video, you very well might enjoy the other videos you now see being suggested to you on screen. Also, we'd greatly appreciate it if you could like, share, or subscribe to our Game Brain channel. Thanks so much.